Okay, welcome everyone to our Committee of the Whole meeting. It's right on 1 o'clock, so we'll call our meeting to order. Any declaration of keen interest in each thereof? No? Seeing none, we'll begin with our delegations and presentations, and we'll begin with our Police Service Board. And I believe Dick Maloney is here to speak on this, along with our OPP representative, Ms. Darling and Constable Darling, if you'd both like to come forward, and we'd love to have your presentation, I guess. Sure.
Make sure we learn how to use this technology.
Sure.
Green lights on means you can talk.
Do they get the little flicker?
And the inspector has the little flicker, I think. They do. The flicker. Well, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come and address you this afternoon on a topic that has been foremost before your Police Services Board for upwards of almost a year now, since the province has been talking about the potential review of the Police Services Act and what it might mean to ratepayers within the province, citizens within the province, and specifically right down and including your own local community. There's great anticipation, frankly, of some very significant changes that the Ontario government will undertake in this respect. Everything from governance structure to issues having to do with the actual structure of boards, costs of policing in the province, anything you can almost imagine. There's all kinds of media coverage that's been out about changes in that effect. To attempt to be responsive to that, your Police Services Board, along with Inspector Darling and other boards within the province, within our county, have said, you know what, it's probably better to take a look at what this might look like in advance of that instead of waiting till somewhat after the fact. So, as one would expect, we've been undertaking some interesting discussions and studies with the leadership of the inspector, along with, I might add, leadership from Deputy Mayor Woods, who has participated on a local Northumberland committee. I'd like to introduce members of that local committee that have been meeting to do that. Certainly Richard Simchuk. Richard, could you stand and be recognized? From Alnwick Haldeman Police Services Board. Your own Dan Bessel, likewise. Gary and the inspector have been undertaking this study to see what we could come up with in advance of, and perhaps affecting the province a little bit, but we would do it our way rather than perhaps how the province may dictate you might want to do that. I'd like to give you just a little bit of background about the status within Northumberland County, first of all, and then we will turn it over to the inspector, who can go over the proposals that we have before you, and we're looking for support from you as our local Police Services Board, and it's going to be going across the county as well to various councils. The inspector will discuss with you about what that schedule would be. Then a little bit of the background. Northumberland County is policed by 3 police service boards. The Cobourg Police Service polices the town of Cobourg. Port Hope Police services the urban area of the municipality of Port Hope, and the OPP is responsible for policing the remainder of the county. That's specifically 6 municipalities, each under what's called a Section 10 contract, which is a reference to the Police Services Act that authorizes the establishment of police services. Specifically then, Alnwick Haldeman, Brighton, Crammy, Hamilton, Trent Hills, and the rural area of Port Hope. On August 26th of 2016, those Section 10 Police Services boards held a joint meeting to discuss the possibility of what a single board might indeed look like. Again, under the leadership of the inspector, some consensus was reached in relation to the board size, composition, a length of term of each member, responsibilities, etc., etc. Subcommittees made up of members of the various boards reviewed it further, and the subcommittee met on several occasions early this fall in 2016 to draft a draft document for review of a feedback. On the 27th of October, we actually went forward to OPSBA, our Police Services provincial body, and made a presentation about what Northumberland was considering around consensus of all the boards. We believe that there is a general acceptance within the police services boards themselves that this concept of a single board model would be effective, would be cost efficient, would save some expenses on your overhead and administrative side, but would maintain those dollars back into the organization so that you could see dollars focused on the front end of the service rather than just overhead and administration. That is kind of the setup and the background about how we are here. We believe we have a pretty good quality model that the inspector is going to present to you that is likely to be expected by the province. We'll see what the act looks like. The local MPP has been apprised of this through the whole process as well, and we would hope that if all of the councils within the county would be prepared to support same, we'd be in a pretty good position to author our own destiny, if you like, a little bit with what police services governance might look like in the county when the act is finalized. So to get into the specifics, I'd like to turn it over to the inspector who will review with you those particulars. Lisa.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Worship. I just wanted to speak quickly about a document that each of you have a copy of. This is just a reference document. It's the Strategy for Safer Ontario FPAC Committee, which is the Future Policing Advisory Committee, and it does some of the things we'll be talking about in the proposal from the Northumberland boards. Does reference some of the information that's in this document as well. The ministry went about some public consultations in early of 2016, and when you look at this document as well as the presentations that the Northumberland boards did with the OAPSB, it appears that some of that information has been incorporated into this document, so that's very promising. So just some background. Let's see if I can make this work. Where do I point it to? Oh yeah, sorry, thank you. Oh, there we go, okay. So the background here, the Ministry of Community Safety and Correctional Services is looking again, as Mr. Chair said, police governance reform and changes to the Police Services Act. They've developed a set of proposed approaches to considering the following areas. So we're really focusing on number one. You can see it's bolded, but here's the 6 areas that the key areas they're looking at for reform in the Police Services Act. So the ensuring civilian governance, police governance across all municipalities policed by the OPP. Right now we have municipalities within the OPP jurisdiction that don't have police services boards. They fall under Section 5.1 of the Police Services Act, and they have community advisory groups that are used as mechanisms for communication with the municipalities, but they're not legislated. So one of the things they're looking at is having police service boards for all OPP police municipalities. The second one is provincial governance for the OPP. The third one is clarifying roles and responsibilities. 4 is enhancing capacity of all police services boards, professionalize boards and address misconduct, and the last one is strengthen and measure boards' effectiveness. So the Police Services Act became a law in 1990. It replaced the previous Police Act of Ontario, which had been around since 1946. So the SIU also came into in 1990 as well, so it was incorporated into the Act at that time. And since that time, obviously, there's been many changes to the requirements for police operations, administration, and governance. So the ministry has taken to open the Act to make improvements in those key areas. Oh, thank you. That helps. I appreciate that. So the ministry is considering establishing one police service board per OPP detachment, and that is included in this reference document. That's one of the key points that are in there. There's going to be some flexibility to establish more than one board in detachments that are larger. I believe they're generally speaking of places, say up north, that have very vast areas that are, maybe their detachments are 2 hours apart, some of their satellites, so it would be very difficult for a board to meet on a regular basis as one board. And then they also looked at board size and composition. So the ministry is considering removing the population threshold for municipal boards. So right now, every police service board within Northumberland actually fits into what a 3-person board would be, but by resolution, they all became 5-person boards. So what they're looking at is increasing the minimum size of boards from 3 to 5 and the maximum board size from 7 to 9. And everything that's being proposed here by Northumberland actually fits within those guidelines as well. For local OPP boards, the ministry is considering addressing board size via regulation. Oh, this is the one I was talking about for geographical circumstances. So that's mainly up north. So the next slide refers to the intent. It kind of goes through the proposal from Northumberland. So the intent was to provide recommendations for a joint police services board that satisfies the requirements for the Northumberland Section 10 municipalities and also provides government with additional information to support the changes to the PSA. It's also important to note that right now, everyone got together as boards and decided what they needed, the act as it's currently written would not support what all the municipalities would like to see. So this is why this was so beneficial to do this ahead of time. So as stated before, there are the 6 municipalities that are policed under Section 10 contracts by the OPP. And again, here's the consensus that was reached by all 6 municipalities or Section 10 boards. They in areas relating to size, composition, remuneration, and length of terms for committee members, for board members, sorry. Subcommittee, again, was formed to draft the document. And here are some of the assumptions that were made when we were looking at how to put a proposal forward. So under the strategy for Safer Ontario, the Police Service Act rewrite would include potential changes to board composition, board term, and board responsibilities, that the ministry would continue to appoint board members, that municipal representatives would continue on police services boards, and specifically for here, Cobourg and Port Hope would continue to maintain their current police services board structures. The new structure would consist of the remaining 5 Section 10 police municipalities. Pardon me. 1 group municipal policing agreement would be developed, and Northumberland County would not be part of that agreement. Group contract allocations of services costs would be consistent with the current model, which is cost per household and calls for service. So we're fortunate here because every municipality is under a Section 10 agreement. We already have consistent costs and numbers for their households and their calls for service by each municipality. So the budget for so the costs allocated for a group contract would be divvied up in the same percentages as they currently exist. Budget for Northumberland PSB allocation would be consistent with the municipal percentages of the overall cost for policing. So if there were the members on the board, if Hamilton was 25% of the overall cost, 25% of the board cost would be identified for Hamilton Township. Municipalities would continue to be the signatories on the agreement with the ministry. And then on the next page, we get into the recommendations for the board. So the recommendations are that it would be a 7-person board for Northumberland. There would be 5 municipal members on that board, 1 head of council on the board, rotated annually or biannually. The remaining municipal representatives could be council appointments or would be council appointments who are either council members or representatives of the community, chosen by municipal council. And then 2 points here, very similar, but no municipality would have 2 council appointment representatives at the same time, and the municipality who had head of council sit on the board would not have a municipal appointment, wouldn't have 2 as well. So 2 persons appointed by the Lieutenant Governor in council who is neither a member of council nor an employee of a municipality and has to be a resident of the jurisdiction in which the board services. The board is responsible for setting the Joint Police Services Board budget, and the protocol for cost of indemnification of the board would still need to be developed. The process for administration of joint municipal contract billings would also still need to be developed. The board establishes policy consistent and consistent remuneration, and revenues or portions collected decided by the municipalities would be redirected for the management of the Police Services Board. So Hamilton does that here. But that would have to be decided among all the municipalities as to whether they're going to allow all revenues to go or a portion thereof. Revenues administered by the board would be provided to support safety initiatives across the county. Sorry, didn't switch that. And they would include equipment, donations to community groups, support of Safe Communities Northumberland, additional localized training for police personnel, Local police initiatives, grant funding to municipalities would continue to go to the municipalities. Community policing responsibilities would be assumed by the board. So the committees would report to the Police Services Board, and each municipality would be encouraged to have either a community policing committee or a CPAC committee, which is more an advisory committee that would report to the board. OPP reporting would consist both of joint and municipal incident information, and that exact composition would be discussed between the board and myself to determine exactly what each municipality wants to see and what the board wants to see. And the board would be responsible for negotiating levels of service enhancements for Section 10 agreements. Also, the training of new Police Service Board members would be a requirement of the boards to ensure it happens, but the ministry would continue to be responsible for supplying that training. And establishment of Police Service Board protocols and procedures as it relates to the areas the board is responsible for under the Act would also be the responsibility of the board. The board term, it was decided a maximum of 8 years with staggered start times to ensure consistency on the board. The chair and vice chair would be appointed annually by the board, and the mayor designate may participate as a backup if the member on the board was unable to make it. Joint services agreement to be passed by the Police Services Board with recommendation to the township councils. And this is one of the other changes to the Act would be dispute resolution would be through OCPC between the boards and the municipalities as it relates to both enhanced level of service and Police Service Board budget issues. And I believe that is it.
Very good, thank you very much.
I wonder if Deputy Mayor Wood would have anything else to add from the perspective of the subcommittee, Your Worship?
Okay, Gary, anything you?
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to add is that our board would like to see, I shouldn't say our board, all the boards would like to see separate motions from all the municipalities within the Northumberland OPP Section 10s to be approved individually, and that it be done by the end of May so that we can have it delivered to our local NPP, who has told us that he personally will take it to the governing authorities in Toronto and present it to them and have discussions. He, as they pointed out, he has been at our meetings. He's aware of what's going on and fully supports what we're doing. But you know, he said if we would get it to him by the end of May, because they are doing their studies, they're just going to wrap up shortly. Not to pressure anybody, but all the boards supported, and what we thought it'd be nice to have all the municipalities supported also.
Can I just ask a quick question then? How many have to support it for it to proceed? I mean, are we looking at majority vote, or is it unanimous vote, or is it?
You want me to? I'll explain that. Basically, the motion will go forward because all the boards have supported it, so our
Okay.
recommendations will go forward, but we just thought as an added enhancement, it'd be nice to have the support of
Council
all the
supports.
municipalities.
Okay.
And, you know, I think it's, to me, it's something that has to be done. We have to look. It's not, you know, there's no big, there is cost savings, but not big cost savings. You know, there is savings for Hamilton Township and other municipalities. And I think I will point out one savings that we did discuss was that in relation, if there's a major crime event that takes place in the county, under a new board, the joint agreement, you would have the provisions in there to say that municipality wouldn't get stuck with all the overtime costs. Now you have 6 counties, or 5 municipalities that would share the cost of overtime that's in there. So, you know, it's a savings that way. And also there's a savings in regards to, although the inspector didn't touch upon it, but I think it's important, it frees up her time. You know, there's only one meeting she's going to, not 6, and she's going one representative, and we're getting, by having one board, our meetings are so that everybody is there, each municipality within the board is getting the same information at the same time. It's not like, you know, Hamilton Township gets theirs the 3rd week of the thing, and, you know, you're getting anything that's up, and there are some, you know, savings that are to be here. But it's, overall, it's for the development of the board. I think it's, you know, it would be more consistent for us to have a joint board and supported by all.
Okay, very good. Yes, Deb?
So, Mr. Mayor, kind of by way of, in summation, to reemphasize the introduction, we really want to be on the front end of this. We did not want to see the act come out and then everybody scrambling saying, okay, how will we do it?
Sure.
It's not that frequent that everyone has consensus across an entire jurisdiction. It is comfortable to believe that your police services boards in Northumberland have come together with a consensus model that we're prepared to present to the province. It is more efficient. It's more efficient. There are some savings, as has been pointed out. It's more efficient for the inspector. The fact that that person doesn't have to attend 5 separate police boards and say the same thing over a 1 month period is obvious. The costs of only a single board instead of the 5 all comes forward, so hence why we brought together a recommendation, and your police services board has a formal recommendation to you from our last meeting that I would request your support.
Sure.
That's it. Open
Okay.
to questions, sir.
Further questions from council members? Anyone? No? No? Well, we're good. So thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. See you Thursday, right?
Yeah, it'll be next Tuesday when we vote on
Yes.
it, so.
And we'll be attending the other councils throughout the next 2 weeks.
Okay,
as well.
very good.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have our fire chief is coming forward, Kelly Searson, and he's going to give us the grade 6 version of open air burning and burn permits.
Thank you, Mayor Lufshin. Also at the back, for any audience members, there's some packages available.
Just
for
before we go
those.
forward, what we're going to do here, Kelly, and I think you're aware of this, that we'd open it up for council members' questions, and we'll open it up to the public afterwards. I should get a motion from council to allow that to happen, so can I get a motion to allow that to happen, that we open it to public after council members? Gary and Pat, all in favor? And that's carried, so be open to questions after we're through.
Perfect. And also, I brought with me Chief Michael Robinson and Chief Trevor Clapperton. Chief Scott Menifee sends his regrets. He's working today, unfortunately.
Mike, do you want to come up too? You're welcome to. No? You're good?
So I'll start off by just talking about the front cover of the report. That's obviously not Hamilton Township. That's actually Fort McMurray. And it's a little fitting that we're here today. Last week was the 1-year anniversary of the Fort McMurray fire, the largest natural disaster in Canadian history that cost in the dollar figure of $9 billion to put that fire out and to build or rebuild the infrastructure that was lost as a result of that fire. So to give you a bit of background, in March and April of 2017, there were 2 council delegations made regarding open air burning. Subsequently, I was asked to prepare a report and am today delivering on that report. To give you some background, in 2017, the fire department brought forward recommendations and changes to the open air burning program that were robust enough to provide an optimal level of fire protection and flexible enough to meet the objective of the customers that we serve. Making changes that serve all residents is difficult. There are both the residents in the community that support no burning at all, and then those that want free reign over open air burning. And that was evident in the April delegation, Mr. Lasika, that came that doesn't want any burning in the township, and then Mr. Young that came in, Lasika in March and Mr. Young in April that had an issue with the new changes. Legislatively, the Ontario Fire Code is very clear on open air burning. It states that open air burning shall not take place unless A, it's been approved, or B, the open air burning consists of a small confined fire that is either used for cooking or for warmth. The current open air bylaw number 2014-19 is the accompanying burning permit process is the method for approval that works with the fire code. The open air burning program has also been developed around and is consistent with the fire department mission, vision, and values. So the changes. So, the original open-air burning bylaw was presented and passed by council in 2014, after receiving a significant overhaul. The recommended changes brought forward in 2017 included 3 items. One, to extend the permit to include all fires. The previous bylaw exempted fires less than 60 cubic centimeters. 2, to blend the farm and residential permit fee and reduce the fee from $235 from $45. And 3, to add a fee that allows the fire department to issue a permit that accompanies a fee to cover the cost for those who are burning and that do not have a permit, but did not also require a fire truck to attend their residence. The changes recommended and made were as a result of operating experience over the past 3 years, 2014 to 2016. Public input and data reviewed from permit distribution and fire department response to open air burning. Operating experience has demonstrated that while wildland fires in the municipality are trending downward, burning complaints, fire department response, and administration is increasing. The majority of these complaints and calls for service stem from the small camp-style fires. In addition to our analysis, it demonstrated that permit numbers are decreasing year over year, indicating that less people are obtaining permits. This result led to 2 observations. The first is that many residents have been obtaining farm permits when they do not meet the definition of a farm or farmer. And the most significant observation was that residents who previously obtained a permit are not renewing their permit and burning under the campfire clause in the bylaw. The revenue decline demonstrated is depicted in your report. And in 2014, we received $12,165 for burn permit fees, and in 2016 it dropped to $8,305. Risk. As the fire chief, I'm ultimately responsible to council for the delivery of the fire protection services in the municipality that the council establishes. It's my strong opinion that open-air burning, including campfires, pose a serious risk and threat to property loss and injury in the township. Open-air burning in the township of Hamilton has been identified as a significant risk in the community in the municipal simplified risk assessment. Open-air burning in any state, from the smallest campfire to the largest commercial burn, pose the same risks and have the potential for devastating results. Almost all open-air fires occur are of human cause. The open-air burning program objective in the township is not meant to be a punitive process for residents and visitors. The objective is to, firstly, provide an educational component, secondly, be a prevention tool, and thirdly, to increase the awareness of safety of open-air burning. Response to fires is not only destructive, it's costly. Preventing fires through education and standards is the key to balancing risk and serving the community. Statistically, open-air burning fires make up approximately 67% of our response to fire calls in the Hamilton Township Fire Department. The rigor and oversight in the permit, bylaw, and burning program ultimately reduces the risk of an adverse incident of fire, property loss, injury, or death. There are many jurisdictions in the province that do not allow any open-air burning at all. The environment. Beyond the risk to life and property, we have witnessed a significant increase in burning of garbage and rubbish that present a health risk and a risk to the environment. It is the small campfire style fires that present the biggest issue for these types of complaints. Burning products other than wood can cause air pollution, smoke and odors, and aggravate respiratory conditions. In 2016, the Fire Prevention Division and suppression crews spent a significant amount of time in the Gores Landing area responding to fires and complaints from campfires and burning materials that were not wood related. In one instance, fire crews responded to an out-of-control campfire that consumed a boat. In addition to many of the seasonal occupancies on the Gores Landing and Rice Lake area. They're aged and adjacent to other seasonal occupancies and heavily populated in the summer seasons. In 2015, we had a significant fire in Gore's Landing that consumed a number of camper trailers and bunkies. And although the fire was not started by a campfire, the threat of a similar event occurring from a campfire is probable and a real threat. The costs. The permit fee and fee-for-service structure is a cost-effective and business strategy to managing the open air burning program. It is believed that because not all taxpayers in the community subscribe or take part in open air burning, that only those who use the service pay for the services. Eliminating the fee structure would force all taxpayers to pay for services associated with open air burning. It's estimated that only about 20% of the residents in the municipality conduct open air burning activities. The fees attained for burning permits for the burning permit is no different than the requirement to obtain a building permit, renting the ice, or the fees attached to residents who use municipal water. The cost for the service is only shared and paid by those in the community who use and have the service. The user fee structure has been an important and vital process in the fire department that keeps the annual fire department budget to an average of 1.4% per year over the last 4 years. Revenue generated from burn permits directly reduced the operating budget cost of the fire services. Annually, the fire department raises approximately $55,000 from fee-for-service or user fee methodology. Eliminating the fee-for-service burning permit and/or the fire department fee-for-service is an option for council to consider. However, it's not recommended. A reduction in any fee, particularly the burn permits, will directly impact the fire department budget and add an additional approximate 1% or $15,000 to the fire department operating budget to taxpayers who may or may not utilize the open air burning program. Response and program oversight for the open air burning is costly and consumes a significant amount of time. It's the estimated annual cost to administer the open air burning program in the township in 2016 was $57,900. These costs do not include private or public properties that were lost. For the purpose of this report, an analysis has been conducted on surrounding municipalities that reflect the fee for services that other municipalities are charging. So in general, where we went and looked was Port Hope, Cobourg, Olna-Coleman, and then some others that were close by, Cavan, Monaghan, Kawartha Lakes, and I found one also from Clarington and Center Wellington. So the ranges in fees were from $20, or as low as $20, to as high as $84.75 for a burning permit. Public education. Annually, the fire department invests a significant amount of fire prevention and public education resources to open air burning. Each year, the fire department and fire prevention division undertakes the following activities to educate the public on wildland fires in the community. We take out a newspaper ad for 4 weeks consecutively, starting in April when the burn season starts. We utilize the electronic township sign. We've had some new fire rating signs built that will be in place by the end of this month. We use the municipal website. We use the CAO's communique. We send out notices with the tax bills. We purchase radio ads. We distribute public education material. We had in the past built frequently asked questions for camp and tourist operators, and we have pamphlets that we distribute. So also attached in your report are some photographs that I'll end my report and open the floor to questions on. These are some fires that we've attended over the past couple years. So the first fire that you see there, that's unattended burning of garbage that burnt 75 acres. From that same fire, we pulled these two paint cans out that were half full of paint. In the third picture, that's a metal container, and it's probably a little difficult to see, but that's a Lazy Boy chair mechanism that's left that was burnt in this metal container. In the fifth picture, that's a campfire where people were burning garbage. In the sixth picture, that's a campfire again, where people are burning their garbage. In the seventh picture, that's a burn that burned about 5 acres. It was in the daytime, and it was from a barrel. Same fire again. Same fire again. That's another burning barrel fire. In the next picture, that's a daytime burn where the people were burning garbage, and that spring in there is a mattress. Open air fires aren't just subject to the summer months. This is an open air fire that was unattended, and they were burning some scraps adjacent to a lumber pile, and the lumber pile caught fire, and that required a three-station response and half a day's work to put that fire out. And I know the picture's very difficult to see, but that's probably a 20-foot high pile of logs, and it went for about 60 or 70 feet. And I got it in the next picture. I've got the entire log pile. The next set of slides is the Gore's Landing Marina fire, and again, I will state that fire was not as a result of a campfire. It was a propane fridge on a camper, but through that fire we lost 7 structures, a number of bunkies, and a bunch of campers, and we were very close to losing the entire camp that day. So those are the slides from the Marina fire and what was consumed at the Marina fire. And in the last council delegation, and you've heard through the report today on the campfires, this is a recent campfire that occurred. Some folks were having a party one night, and sparks from the campfire caught some items in the yard on fire, and we lost a boat in that fire. That's in campfire 2 picture. We lost the contents of the yard. We lost a camper trailer and a bunch of automobiles. That concludes my report.
Kelly, are you going to go through the frequently asked questions, or is that just, I know it's in here.
I can, and thanks
Maybe
for
that
that
would-
option. What I did was, based on the 2 council delegations that came forward, I built a new set of FAQs to answer all of the questions that Mr. Young had presented that day that are built in the FAQs. So if you wish to do so, I could go through
It
those.
may be wise too, because there's a number of people here I know that are here to hear your presentation, so it may clear up some of the information that is out there, misinformation that's out there and so forth. So.
Sure.
Do you need a copy? I can give you.
I got one here. Okay. So the first FAQ question is, who does the open air burning apply to? The answer is the bylaw applies to anyone who has an open air burn, No person shall set or cause to be set or permit to be set an open air fire in the township without obtaining a burn permit, without obtaining written permission from the fire chief, and/or his or her delegate through the issuing of a permit by the same person, and that exceeds the allowable fire area without obtaining written permission from the fire chief and/or his or her delegate. Second question. Where are the regulations around what are the regulations around daytime burning? There is no residential permit burning in the daytime hours from April 1st to October 31st. Daytime burning is reserved for commercial purposes and farm properties under the definition of a farm property as described in the bylaw. All daytime burning must be approved by the chief fire official and/or her delegate, his or her delegate, and requires a site inspection by the fire department prior to burning. 3, why do I need a permit for a campfire? Campfires pose the same risk as any other open air fire. In most settings where campfires occur, buildings and structures are in close proximity to others and increase the risk of a structure fire occurring that could cause property damage, injury, or death. In addition, there has been a significant increase in the burning of garbage and other material that is environmentally prohibited, irritates neighbors, and causes complaints. The burn permit system places control on open air burning and provides safe burning tips on the permit aimed to educate, increase safety, and help permit holders burn safely. When can I burn? Burning can take place anytime after 6 p.m. and up till 8 a.m., April 1st through October 31st, provided weather conditions are favorable and there is not a burn ban in effect. Burning from November the 1st to March 31st can occur at any time through the day, provided there is not a burning ban in place. Item 5, why can't I burn in the daytime? Daytime burning is restricted for 2 reasons. Winds and ability to respond. Winds are most prevalent in the daytime, fanning flames and spreading embers from burning sites. The ground, or duff, also reaches its driest point through the day, allowing fires to spread at a faster rate than in the evening or at night. And firefighting crews are volunteer. Daytime firefighter numbers can be extremely low, and when required to respond in the daytime, it takes them away from their full-time work unnecessarily. It also may increase response times as a result of firefighters having to come from work or from their work locations. 6, does the owner of a campground / trailer camp / tourist camp require a burn permit? Yes, the owner shall obtain an annual permit for campfires within the designated campground, trailer camp, tourist camp from the Township of Hamilton Fire Department. One permit covers each individual site, provided that the fire is supervised at all times, the fire is used for food or personal warmth, the fire extinguishing materials are on hand, which may include but are not limited to shovels, rakes, fire buckets, garden hoses, sand, and water. Question 7. Is there a fee for an annual permit, and where can I purchase the burn permit? Yes, there is a non-refundable fee which will provide the owner with a burn permit valid for 1 year from the date of issue. There are 2 types of permits: a residential / farm permit, which is $35, and a commercial permit, which is $95. Permits can be purchased at the Township of Hamilton Municipal Office, located at 8285 Majestic Hills Drive, Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. Question 7. Why is there a fee for a permit? The open air burning program is a fee for service program and no different than the requirement to obtain a building permit. Many of the residents in the township do not participate in the township in open-air burning activities. Permit fee revenue directly supports the administration, fire prevention, and public education component of the open-air burning program and reduces the impact of the fire department operating budget. By increasing oversight and conducting fire prevention and public education, we can reduce risk, the number of fires, and the cost of response. Eliminating the burn permit fee structure for open-air burning would result in an increase in the fire department operating budget by an approximate 1% or $16,000. Nine, who is responsible for the fire control? The person who has been issued a permit to burn in the open air assumes full responsibility for fire control and shall be responsible for any damages to the property or injury, assume full responsibility for conducting and controlling burning in accordance with safety measures required by the fire department, the FPA, the EPA, and other statutes or regulatory bodies having jurisdiction, attend the fire at all times, and ensure that it is attended by an adult person. 10. What materials can be burned? You may burn wood or wood byproducts, meaning wood or wood product, including tree trunks, tree branches, and brush. You may not burn any wood that is contaminated with paint, chromated copper, aspartame, and a number of other items, predominantly treated or pressure treated wood, and I won't go through all of those. There's a number of those that follow up. You may not burn upholstered articles, i.e. couches and or articles to which a rigid surface treatment is affixed or adhered, i.e. countertops, unless the rigid surface treatment is predominantly wood or cellulose, or plywood or particle board on which the wood is held together with chemical substance such as glue and or any other chemical. You may not burn toxic materials such as painted wood or incinerated garbage. Toxic materials may also include items such as plastics, tires, shingles, and various chemicals. 11. Are there restrictions to open-air burning? Yes, when a burn ban is imposed, no person shall set a fire within the Township of Hamilton unless for the sole purpose of heating and or cooking. When no other means of heating and or cooking are available, the fire shall be extinguished as soon as the fire is no longer required. 12. When is a ban on open-air burning placed? A burn ban will be placed on open-air fires by the fire chief when weather conditions limit the rapid dissipation of smoke, when wind may cause unsafe conditions that may result in fire spread, when under extreme dry or arid conditions, or under smog alert conditions. "13. Do I require a permit if I have a barbecue or chimenea? The open-air burning bylaw does not apply to fires used for cooking, warmth, religious, or ceremonial purposes. Most chimeneas, patio hearths, fire tables, and similar devices that are elevated from the ground and fabricated from steel, concrete, or clay with a chimney and or screen around the firebox do not require a permit. 14. What happens if you don't have a valid burn permit? If you are burning without a valid burn permit, you may be subject to a fire department issued permit that has a cost of $95 and or be responsible for the cost of response that is a minimum of $450 and or lose burning privileges. 15. Who enforces the open-air burning bylaw? Enforcement of the open-air burning bylaw is conducted by the fire department members and is on a complaint and request basis. The permit process is a tool used to complement and support safe and compliant burning. 16. How will I know if an open-air burning ban has been placed. The Township of Hamilton electronic signboard located outside the municipal office will inform township residents of the open air burning ban. And for information, please call, or you can call the office at the municipal office, or you can visit our website. And that concludes the FAQs.
Thank you,
The
Kelly.
draft FAQs, I may add.
Okay, thank you very much. Council members, any questions? I'm going to have some hands here. I'll go right around the table, and I'll go to Gary first, and then Bill, and then Scott.
Kelly, I just wondered if you could, just so that everyone's clear, just explain the difference between the owner of a compound trailer park. Kelly, could you please explain the difference between the owner of a trailer park, a campground, and a resident of a trailer park? Because some people were confused, that somebody in a residential trailer park could be considered a trailer camp. Could you just explain that for us, please?
So the definition is spelled out clearly in the bylaw, but essentially what, and we had this, had this discussion, a place like Sundown or Lougheed, each individual person who owns the site is responsible for getting a permit, where a place like the Marina at Gore's Landing, the camp owner who has responsibility for the entire property is responsible for the site and has one permit under the permit process.
So I just want to be clear, just so it's out there, that you say the site owner, it's not, like in a trailer park, they don't own the land, usually they just own the trailer or the condominium house that they're living in that's put on that lot. So
That's correct.
They are responsible themselves.
That's correct.
Okay.
And I believe there'll be laws within the park that'll determine whether
I
they can
see.
burn or not. Okay, Bill?
Yep, thank you. Kelly, I just want to know, the weather was on your side, obviously, but did you have a number of wildfires or grass fires this spring? And can you tell me how many were directly related to Carol's open air burning?
Thanks for the question, and I have this in my data, and I didn't put it out there for you to send it back to answer this, Bill, but I do have that information on hand and know it. So since April 11th, when the delegation to council appeared, we've had six responses to open air burning incidents. 4 were fires and 2 were complaints. I'll deal with the 2 easy ones. So they were campfires, and one was in the daytime, and we got a complaint about burning, and the other was in the evening time, and it was a large campfire that neighbors were afraid of and called the fire department, which we responded to. Of the 4 fires, 2, the cause was not determined. They were along roadways, so it could have been caused from a cigarette butt or some sort of glass. The other 2 were fires that caused property damage. We lost acreage in both incidents, and both were in the daytime, and both were barrel burns. So people burning from barrels, where embers jumped out. In one incident, in the urbanized area, the landowner was burning in a barrel, and the fire actually jumped 3 properties. The embers landed 3 properties away, and caught the back of the property on fire that burned about 1.5 acres.
Thank you.
Okay, Scott?
Well, first of all, thank you, Kelly, for the information you provided today. But for me, there's still some ambiguity, and I suggest that a great deal of our questions and a great deal of our concerns is around this particular topic. We, in our presentations and in our verbalization of these rules and regulations, we keep interchanging the words campfire and open air burning. Now, not every fire, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, or please confirm I am correct here, Kelly. Not every open air burning, I gotta change that. Not every fire is open air burning. In other words, as your answer to question 13 just a moment ago, any small controlled fire for the benefit of warmth or for the benefit of cooking is exempt from a permit because it's not by definition open-air burning. Is that correct?
So first off, any fire that's outside is open air burning. I made reference to the campfires because that was the significance of the report that came forward in April, and there was questions around the campfire, and that came with the changes that we made in the 2017 changes to the burning bylaw, 2014-19, where previous to this year, you could have a fire that was 60 centimeters in diameter that we all refer to as campfires and didn't require a permit. With respect to your question, the fire code talks about two items, A and B. The fire must be having to be approved by the chief fire official, and B, you can have a small fire for the cooking for the purposes of cooking and or warmth. And there's a number of articles on there about TSSA approved devices and so on that's in your report. So I'm a little confused about the question, and I'll.
Okay, I'll repeat it because I'm really confused about the answer and what I'm reading. Question 13 that was presented in your report today. Do I require a permit if I have a barbecue or a chimenea? The text that you've written back is, the open air burning bylaw, which is what's before us for discussion
Yep.
and has been recently approved.
Yes, sir.
The open air burning bylaw does not apply to fires used for cooking, warmth, religious, or ceremonial purposes. So that means they're exempt from the open air burning bylaw in that sentence.
Provided they're in a device that's elevated from the ground or fabricated of steel or concrete or clay, have a chimney and or screen around it. That's correct.
Where's the provided in this? You go on to say that in other examples.
So what it says most chimneys, most chimeneas, patio hearths, fire tables, and other similar devices that are elevated from the ground or fabricated from steel, concrete and or clay with a chimney or screen around do not require permit.
Right, I don't want any of those. I don't have any of those. I got a rock line system that's, I'm gonna use for cooking my hot dogs, my marshmallows on Friday night down at the lake. And your answer to this is, that's not an open air burning because I'm using it for cooking and warmth.
That's an open air burn, but it doesn't fit the definition, or at least my definition, of being inside a container that has a chimney, a screen, or some device to prevent sparks.
Where does it tell me I have to have that inside that? Doesn't in this particular answer. It says open air burning bylaw does not apply to fires used for cooking. Nowhere does it say that it has to be screened, or in a container, or in a chimenea, or in a patio hearth. It just says I'm exempt, because it's not open air burning.
Yeah, you need to, it needs a little wording change. I know these are draft at this moment, so
Well,
So is it your intent, in my example, of a 24-inch diameter rock circumference, when me toasting marshmallows on Friday night down at the lake, is it your intent that that will need a burning bylaw permit?
that is my intent.
Okay, I don't believe your text says that, by the way.
So, and I will add to that, and I didn't bring it, but there are, in the fire code, where that wording comes from, and you're right, Counselor Jib, there is a reference to, they define what that means, and cooking doesn't mean just because you have a bag of marshmallows or a package of wieners that's a cooking or warmth fire. So, I mean, I could clean up the FAQ. I could see where there could be some interpretation there, so.
And by the way, my understanding from your proposal that we've passed a few weeks ago, and I believe Deputy Mayor Woods may have also had the same interpretation with some follow-up conversation I've heard from Mr. Woods, that we thought, and in particular I thought, that if I had my example of marshmallows and hot dogs down by the lake, it was not going to be needing a permit, provided it wasn't, 20 feet in diameter kind of thing, I'm not
Right.
talking about the exaggerated misuse of that.
And all I can say is that we did that in 2014. You see the pictures, you see what we've lost and the operating experience that we've encountered over the past 3 years, the campfires with the stone that you described that we go to that burn garbage and that have caused fires. That's what drove us down that road, and that's what I brought to council, and that's what I asked for.
Well, that's not the use of my example, that's the misuse of my example.
I agree, and I had this exact same conversation with the resident the other day. If everybody burned safely and followed the rules, we wouldn't need a permit. We would not be sitting here talking about this currently, but that's not the case.
Okay. Pat, you have a question? Then we'll go to the, unfortunately, Committee of Adjustment, we're going to be running a little behind, so if you're here for the Committee of Adjustment meeting, we're probably going to be about 15 minutes behind, just to let you be aware of that. But we are talking fire permits and burn permits and so forth, so you may be of interest anyway.
Mr. Mayor, just before I go to that question, so the clarity around that was that the intent was clear, and it's the wording around the chimney and
Yes.
otherwise will be cleaned up as in this draft.
Yeah, because these are draft questions, so it's a good point, and we do need to clear that up, so it is more understanding. Pat, yes?
This is actually one I hadn't realized when had gone through these things originally. My question is actually about the daytime burning hours. Why would we allow them between October 31st and March 31st?
Why did?
In residential areas.
Just so I get your question right.
2 on your FAQs
Yep.
says there's no residential permit burning in daytime hours from April 1st to October 31st. But I had thought we'd already talked about residential not being the best place for daytime burning at all. Why would we allow it in the fall and winter?
So, sorry, I'm not understanding, Councilor Court.
What she's saying, Kelly, is right now you're allowing daytime hours between April and October, so there's no burning. Why not have it all year round, basically?
Oh, gotcha, okay. There's a fire, so we follow the fire season that's set by the Forest Fire Prevention Act. So traditionally, after October 31st, the ground's wet, the risk of fire running along the ground and taking off are much lower. So the fire service or open air burning has always traditionally allowed the day burning to take place after the October 31st fire season.
Okay, I understand the safety component, but this is where I was going with it. If you have a complaint generated from the smoke, we're sending out people to look into it, because even though it may be completely safe, it could be the one that got out of control. If we're already limiting it, and we don't really want the residential burning in the daytime hours because we don't want to have to answer those fire calls, I just, like I said, I hadn't caught this when this came to us earlier. I'm just wondering if we should have even been, for that particular component, going, you know what, just no daytime burning in residential areas. Just as a thought. Like I said,
Something for next
am I also right in assuming that once you get a complaint, whether it be a residential area or a campfire or anything else, you are obligated for safety reasons to send out a truck for it to be investigated?
That's correct. So once a complaint hits the line, then either an individual or a fire truck responds to that complaint, depending on how it's perceived and how it comes in.
Okay.
Correct.
So regardless of whether we have the permit bylaw in effect or not, like if I've got a permit and my neighbor decides that they're annoyed and that they don't like the fire, and they call in, and the fire is completely, I've got the permit, I've got everything, whoever answers the phone may even know I've got it. I don't know how that side of it will work, but that doesn't have any impact on the call being answered. This is totally from an educational safety component, am I right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, now we'll go to the public. For those from the public that have questions, I'd like to have your name and address, if you would. So is there anyone from the public with questions in relations to fire permits, burn permits? Cameron? Yes.
Yes, Cameron Davidson, Road, over, Cameron Township. My question is, I'm trying to ascertain responsibility for the permit, for the obtaining of the permits, and it may be similar to Gary's question. I own a rental property, and let's say the occupant of that house wants to have a backyard campfire on a Saturday evening, but let's say they don't get a permit. Let's say there's a complaint basis or a fire is out of control, and you want to bill somebody. Whose responsibility is it in that situation?
So, for you and in your instance, what I would recommend is, as the landowner, the landlord, that you give permission to your tenant to obtain a burn permit. It's stated that the name on the burn permit is the person that we will seek if there's an issue with the burn permit.
Am I allowed to respond to that?
Yeah, if you would, Cameron, sure. If you have a further question or comment.
Well, I guess this is just a further comment, is, I guess I, as a person, I don't want to, say, the fire department say, well, gee, that's at his property, he should be a responsible property owner. I'm gonna send the bill to that property owner as opposed to the tenant who says, I don't want to have anything to do with permits. And, sometimes you have to follow the money, you say, well, the property owner maybe has a larger ability to pay that supposed fine or fee.
Yeah, understood. And again, I know that's a difficult situation, and it exists in a number of instances. And what I would really suggest that you do, you're right. You're ultimately responsible. It's your property. In terms of having your tenants want to burn, you've got a couple of choices there. Either you restrict burning altogether on your property, and/or you make them come to get the permit, and then they're responsible for the permit. It doesn't indemnify you from any loss, but it limits your liability, just like it would with anything else that you do as a landowner or landlord with respect to your property.
Okay. Further questions? Sandra, you have a question? Yes?
Thank you, Your Worship. Sandra Stockbridge for Hope. Further to this gentleman's question, does he need to give written authorization for his tenant to act as his agent? Or, for example, does one person need to give written authorization for their neighbor or family member to act as agent?
I have no requirement for that, but it's a great question, and as a property owner and landlord myself, I would go down that road, and I would suggest that happen. It doesn't, again, indemnify you from not being responsible, but it sure does limit some of the responsibility that you would have in those instances.
Okay.
If I may? Thank you. I'm thinking about any other application that comes to the township. The owner must give written authorization for anybody else to act as their agent. And in a far-fetched scenario, I could come in and get a permit for Mr. Gibbs' property and know that he's away for the weekend and then commit arson with a permit. It's far-fetched, but it's possible. So perhaps. Please deny that permit. I'm not speaking up front, though, of course. Perhaps making sure that somebody has written authorization to act as agent would be a good idea.
I mean, the burn permit is not the answer to every solution or situation out there. The burn permit is a tool. It's a fire prevention and public education tool. So I'd have no issue with that, and I think responsible landowners would follow in that cadence and say, if you're going to burn, then I want you to get permission from me, and that could be handled in the lease agreement or the ownership agreement. But I can't make the burn permit fit every and all situations. It's a fire prevention tool that we use to limit liability and really protect the citizens that we have in our community. So.
Okay. we're going to continue on. We'll go to the public, and then if there's any question by council afterwards, we'll go back. So, yes, sir. Can you give your name and address, please?
John Bernsack, Boundary Road in Dudley. Kelly, we appreciate what you and your team do, thank you.
Thanks, John.
The question I had was, for the $35 open air permit, and, you know, it's good for 1 year, and I'd like to have a fire, you know, maybe every other weekend or once a month. What happens when I apply for that permit? So once I apply for the permit and pay the $35, do you come out and do a site visit, inspect where the fire is going to be, the size of the fire pit, and when I am going to have a fire and, you know, cook the hot dogs and marshmallows, do I have to call and let you guys know that I'm gonna have a fire at 1800 on, you know, June 2nd? So I understand how the permit works, so.
Right, so, thanks, John. With the permit, and when you purchase a permit, and you pay your $35, on the back of the permit are a number of safe burning tips. And you, when you get your permit and sign for your permit, you have now taken responsibility to burn safe and have read the rules required under the burn permit. You know, there's no need to call in to the fire department to tell them when you're burning. And that was the way of the past. The unfortunate thing of that was when we got called, it actually it's in some instances put the fire department in a false sense of security, and said, "Oh, that's John, just has a permit," yet your next door neighbor's house was on fire. So we decided that that wasn't a really great tool for us. So we wanted to ensure that you had the ability to burn, and then you didn't have to call every time you burn. As long as you were following the rules of the permit, which you signed for, then you take responsibility for the fires that you have, and by following the rules, you would burn safe, because they're all placed on the back of the permit.
Okay, so you're educated when you receive the permit.
Correct, and then in addition to that, the fire prevention program and public education program that we have in the municipality has a very deep component that deals with open air burning and having fires and outdoor fires.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, further questions from the public? Okay, I got this gentleman, and I'll go back to Cameron again, yes?
Norm Richards, Forest Hill Drive. Regarding a fee structure, I must compliment you for having checked out and researched what's going on in several other adjacent townships. But in the end, you end up with what I would call a middle-of-the-road fee. You didn't go with the low, you didn't go with the high. Could you give us your rationale for hitting the middle of the road instead of going to the highest level, for example, in Coburg?
So originally, when we built this fee, and we actually built the fee in 2014, and the business rationale was what public education component we would spend on the permit or the open air burning, the costs of the permits, and the administration fee. So when we started this out, the fee was based solely on the operation or the administration end of the open air burning. The $57,000 that I speak to, or the $60,000, I rounded it up, comes from two different components. One, that administration that the fee covers, and B, and the largest component, $54,000 of that actually came from response to fires. So that's where that $60,000 came from, and when we started, that fee structure came from solely the administration of the burn permit, how and what that was going to look like and what that would cost, and that's what we went out and sought out to recover in that fee structure. Thus the amount for the $95 commercial permit that we call, what it requires is a fire inspector to go out, look at your property, provide some detailed drawings on how you're going to burn, when you're going to burn, where you're going to burn, and then a follow-up process. So that made the increment of the cost go higher than $35.
Okay, Cameron again, yes?
Okay,
there's slightly different rules regarding farm work, if I understood things properly. What constitutes a farm? Because we have a situation now where, Hamilton Township being a predominantly rural area, people have small properties, and if they so much as maybe have a dozen or 2 dozen chickens and a goat, they consider themselves farmers now. How do you make that determination that what constitutes a farm property?
So, sir, so I don't get this wrong. There's a very clear definition, and I don't think I brought a copy of my bylaw with me, but there's a very clear definition of the farm and what a farm constitutes, and it's based all around that money, the monetary increment of what you make and don't make, and that's how we went. The classification of what a farm follows through the municipal structure.
So you're talking, someone who has a valid farm business registration number in the province of Ontario, is that what you're saying?
And follows that, I think it's a $7,000.
Which is one of the requirements to.
Right. So that's the process that we follow.
Okay. Any other questions from the public? Okay, very good. Last questions from
quick-
council?
quick
Then we could go over to community adjustment.
Very quick,
so-
I promise.
Yep.
Kelly, if someone gets a burn permit and requests you to come out for a site visit, would you be able to do that?
Absolutely.
Okay, and,
So-
sorry?
We're required by the act to do that, request and complaint. So there is no fee or cost for that. That's something that we do as a fire department, as a municipal service.
That's what I thought, I just wanted to confirm. And the second one is referring to Mr. Davidson's question earlier about tenants and such. Without having to get a burn permit, that same problem would be in effect, right? So the burn permit gives you the opportunity, if you get your tenant to get one, get the permit to actually protect yourself a little bit more than previously. Am I right there?
I would agree with that. I mean, some may not, but I would agree with that. And as also a landlord, I would subscribe to that methodology.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Last question,
Yeah, I
Bill?
want to pick up where you left off, Pat. I don't think we've solved Cameron's problem. I wonder if we shouldn't make the resident responsible for the burn permit, because you're leaving the homeowner at the mercy of what the resident, the renter is going to do on that property.
The other side of that, though, Bill, is that you've got campground owners, you've got trailer park owners, so forth. Generally, they have rules that they have for the people that reside there or may.
Right, but they've already got a permit.
They have one permit for the whole
That's right.
camp.
But this is a different case. This is an
So-
individual
So a
situation.
person like Cameron would have, and I hate to use names, but a person that rents out a home and so forth, this actually helps them now, I think is what Kelly just explained, because right now, before, there was no need for a permit. So if a fire truck came down the road and somebody was burning out of control on that particular property, the homeowner would still get the bill. It wouldn't be the person that rents. Now there's an opportunity for the person that's renting that house to either negotiate with that homeowner or make sure that homeowner has a permit, or you may say, look, no burning on this property at all anymore, so we're not going to allow any burn permit. So there's a little bit more there for that person to address those type
The
fires.
onus is still on the homeowner, or sorry,
Yeah,
the property.
it is anyway, right? So it was before, it still is now. The only difference now is there's that little influx with the permit, and that may stop an outside burn at all, or it may allow that person to, if the homeowner says, yes, you can get a burn permit, it allows them to go do that still. Gary?
Yeah, I just have one follow-up question to that, and my concern is that the landowner is a limited company, okay, and I want to, I'm a tenant in an apartment building that's a limited company. I still feel that it should be, there should be more emphasis on the resident itself. I mean, I've got to go through a lot of trouble to find out who some landlords aren't even within the municipality, some are, all over the province. So, the onus is on me to contact them or something, and, I wish there was some way around that we could just put the onus on the resident.
And I will take this back and put some thought into it. Off the top of my head, and I work with any landowner to help them build some verbiage into their lease agreement that talks about fire, if they choose to do so. But again, the first person that we're going to knock on the door of the day that there's an incident is the name that's on that permit. And I would tend to believe that we're going to hold them responsible for any damages. And then the final thing that comes to mind when you were talking about tenant, landowner issues, I mean, that's a world unto its own, and a place that I think the municipality would be difficult to get in, but I'd certainly be willing to sit with Cameron after and work through his particular issue, because I think the other thing is, there are a number of small little intricacies here, and everybody has a different situation, but I'm certainly willing to work with anybody that brings it forward to get a good resolve.
Yeah. Yeah, we gotta move on. We really gotta move. I mean,
I have one final comment.
not on the rent thing anymore.
No, this is on a question of burning, and relates to Scott's issue. That's on cooking. I want to have a pig roast. Okay, if my metal container, my homemade metal container, if it's off the ground, do I need a permit?
If it's like a barbecue?
Well,
No.
I made a metal container that, that's off the ground, I want to have a pig
No.
roast. I just want clarity on it.
No.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for that. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone, for your input and questions and so forth. If you have any further questions, the two fire chiefs are here. And if you don't want to ask today, the two coordinators are Gary and Bill, so you're welcome to contact them, and they'll try and make this even better for next year. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn our committee of the whole meeting? Bill and Gary, all in favor, and it's carried.